Okay, and then I am going to be sharing my screen. So one disclaimer, I am using a desktop and then to share my screen and then the laptop to see my notes. So if you catch a lag sometimes between slides, that may be me catching up on the laptop. And Dr. Gherkin will be helping with any kind of technology things we might need. So again, welcome to dealing with the continued disruption of COVID-19. Let's listen to this short audio clip to set the mood.
Changes. Turn and face the strain. Changes. Don't wanna be a richer man. Changes. Turn and face the strain. Changes. It's gonna have to be a different man. Now may change me, but I can't trace time.
Thank you, David Bowie. Well, I played this same clip when I did a different workshop at the beginning of the pandemic, but unfortunately, the clip still fits. So again, welcome everybody. My name is Lynn Mitzi-Bryzak, and I am a faculty member in the counseling department at GCC. As all the counseling faculty do, I teach courses. CPD 150 is one that I've taught, Strategies for College Success. One that I'm teaching this semester is CPD 160, Introduction to Multiculturalism. I'm also the club advisor for the Muslim Student Union on campus, and as all the counseling faculty do, I meet with students for one-on-one sessions regarding personal, career, and academic issues. I've been a counselor for over 30 years, a long time, working in community colleges, universities, and a small liberal arts women's college. I also was the program director of the Cancer Support Community of Arizona. And a little bit about me personally, my family transplanted to Phoenix from the Midwest when I was 10 years old. And I've been going back and forth and exploring California and the state of New York as well since then. I love working with people in transition, facilitating personal growth, goal achievement, and resilience in individuals and communities with grace and compassion is my mission. I also enjoy spending time with friends and family, cooking, hiking, and enjoying the great outdoors. This picture is of me in my at-home office. With me today, as you've already heard mentioned, is my colleague, Dr. Gherkin, and he has a few things he wants to tell you.
Hi, just two brief announcements. The slides from this workshop, all of the slides that will be shared today, they'll be posted at the very end of the workshop on the last screen, the last slide. So if you'd like those, stay with us till the end. And also, if you're here for extra credit for a class, be sure to stay till the end and do the evaluation at the end of the workshop. And that's how we'll verify your attendance with your instructor.
Great, thank you. If you need to contact either one of us, this is our contact information. Again, you'll have these slides at the end. So this workshop, it's about dealing with disruptions. So disruptions, just as a disclaimer again, I let you know that my dog is in the room with me. I don't expect to hear from her, but she might want to make herself known at some point. But what do we mean by disruptions? Well, disruption is a disturbance or problems which interrupt. They're radical changes, kind of like what David Bowie was saying at the beginning of this. And how did this particular disruption that we've been engaged in for almost a year start? Well, you might remember last spring, the invisible assault of this novel coronavirus, which led to emergency actions to prevent the spread, including things like the shutting down of businesses, travel, and schools, physical distancing and mask wearing. And then societal confusion about whether school or businesses should be open or not, what the virus was, how it spread, how we're going to get rid of it. So there's been a lot that has been creating some disruptions and interrupting what we have thought of as our normal lives. For almost the past year, we've been asking, how long is this going to last? And many of us thought, or I guess perhaps hoped, that it was going to be over by the end of the semester, by the end of last spring. That didn't happen. So then we thought, well, maybe by the end of summer. Nope. Then we hoped maybe it would be over by the end of 2020. Nope. Now I'm just hoping for herd immunity by summer of 2021. The impact across the world and in our country has been enormous. As you can see from this graph, which is showing only the United States, the incidence of the COVID cases had that huge jump when we first became acquainted with it. And then it did go down a bit in the summer with a couple of spikes, kind of flattened out. We were hoping it was going to end the end of the year. No, that's when it's increased tremendously, even more than it was at the beginning. And even though now it's on a downswing, it is still higher. The incidences are higher than they were at that first spike. So in this, since February 11th, or up till February 11th, 27.4 million cases had been reported in just the United States and 475,000 deaths. All of this has led to what we're calling pandemic fatigue, this continued disruption. In the US, a large-scale study showed that the incidence of symptoms of serious psychological distress increased from 3.9% in 2018 to 13.6% in 2020. So that's just one of the symptoms of this pandemic fatigue, the psychological distress. Something else that we're noticing is job loss and economic hardship faced by most everyone, but especially found in communities of color and essential workers. The social isolation is contributing to the pandemic fatigue as well. And this is happening for all ages, from preschool children who can't go to preschool to elementary and high schoolers who have been denied the opportunity to engage physically with their peers throughout the learning environment, to college students who have had to change the way that we learn and study, to families that cannot gather the way we used to be able to gather, perhaps even with loved ones, maybe people that are dealing with physical ailments, perhaps that have had to go to the hospital. There are parents that have had to take their children to the hospital and only one parent can go in, or if you have family members who are in care facilities and not being able to visit them is part of the fatigue of this social isolation. And then to cap that all off, many of us are grieving the death of loved ones. And that grief is, we aren't able to say goodbye with the same social rituals we're used to, gathering in groups and being able to celebrate and mourn the loss of our loved one. So all of these things are contributing to the pandemic fatigue. Given the extreme stress caused by the pandemic, for this workshop, I decided to look towards positive psychology for ways to address it. Positive psychology is the scientific study of what makes life most worth living. And it looks at our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors. It adopts a strengths-based and pro-social view of human capacities for individuals and for institutions in good times and in bad times. And there are a number of strategies that positive psychology promotes. And these strategies have been shown to do many benefits for us, including buffering us from mental illness. So reducing the incidence of mental illness. Things like grit and optimism are considered buffers. Another benefit of these positive psychology principles are that they can bolster us. They can help us to maintain our mental health through things like humor and connectedness. And then the last benefit I'm going to mention is that they also help us to build our psychological resources. You might have heard of the term resilience as well. So these positive psychology principles offer all these benefits to us. And if you come to workshops later on this semester, you will get more deeply introduced to some of these buffers and bolstering. For this workshop, though, I am going to specifically look at a couple of strategies. And these strategies are based on research because researchers have been studying the impact of positive psychological principles for years, and knowing their value have been engaging in studies already during this past year during the pandemic. The 4 strategies that I intend to look at today include self-compassion, courage, gratitude, and meaning making. And these 4 strategies are meant to help us deal with the ongoing disruptions of COVID-19. So self-compassion. So just a reminder for folks to mute yourselves while we're going through this. So far, Peaches has been very quiet, which I'm grateful for. The first strategy from positive psychology that we're looking at is self-compassion. And you can think of this as the golden rule in reverse. Treat yourself the way you would like others to treat you, with kindness and gentleness. And some ways to get there can be mindfulness and shifting one's perspective in a way that recognizes that we all share the experience of suffering. None of us is perfect. We all encounter challenges in life. And so this self-compassionate approach allows us to build some of those resiliencies and bolster and buffer ourselves. This idea is that all feelings that we have too are valid and valuable. So instead of trying to replace what some might think of as negative feelings, anger or frustration or sadness, that we instead embrace those feelings and treat them with kindness and care. The research shows that people that experience a range of feelings actually have better health outcomes. I mentioned at the beginning that I was the program director for an organization called the Cancer Support Community. That's a local organization that's part of a national network. And we were engaged in a lot of research. And that research found that cancer patients who didn't just put on a happy face, like some people might say, if you get cancer, you have to think positive, you can get through it. That instead, those who experience the full range of emotions, from anger and depression and sadness and regret to joy and laughter and anticipation, were the ones who had a better quality of life. Their quality of life was improved. And there was some research that supported that they even lived longer, that people lived longer who expressed that whole range of emotion. So we want to remember that this self-compassion can also bolster our immune system. something very physiologically that it does, it lowers our cortisol levels too. So showing compassion toward this continued uncertainty that we are experiencing as a result of the pandemic can actually give us a sense of emotional safety that's really needed right now so that we are not overtaken by fear. So I recognize, though, that this idea about self-compassion and being able to name our feelings and identify our feelings might really be a challenge, because research shows that most adults, over 70% of adults, have difficulty identifying our feelings. However, with effort, we can learn, and regular practice actually has great benefits. So we are going to try this. I'm going to ask you to think about a feeling that you're having, and Dr. Gerken is going to post in the chat a link that's going to take you to a Poll Everywhere site where you can contribute a word that's a feeling word. So you're going to try to name a recent feeling, and I'll ask you to do that 1 or 2 words and then hit submit. And then you can make as many submissions as you would like. I can show you what that looks like, and Dr. Gerken will post that in the, so this is what it looks like. It's in this white space that you will write a word. So Dr. Gerken, if you'd let me know when you've got that in the poll.
It's posted in the chat now.
Great. So if you would go into the chat, click on that link, and then you should see this, and you can type a word in here. Happy, sad, angry, excited, whatever your feeling word is, and then hit submit. And you can do that as many times as you like.
If it doesn't work the first time you click on the link, you may need to click on it 2 or 3 times, but it should eventually work.
And if you're having any trouble with it, just let us know in the chat and we'll see what we can figure out. All right, I'll give you about another 10 seconds if you want to put anything else in there. Okay, it looks like people have stopped. So I'm going to invite you back to the presentation, and I'm sharing my screen right now. And the screen has created a word cloud out of what you have contributed. So as you look at that, it looks like stressed is what most people put in there. We've got quite a bit of tired and anxious too.
If you're having trouble getting back to the presentation, just click on, if you have a zoom.us link or icon that looks like a blue background with a white camera, just click on that and it should take you back.
Thank you, Dr. Gerken. And if you're having any trouble, please let us know in the chat. If you can get back to the chat. And Dr. Gerken, if anybody else is in the waiting room, I don't know if you're checking that as well.
Yep, I'm checking, no one else there now.
Okay, great, thanks. So can you see this, David? Can you see the results, the word cloud?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm going to assume that means everybody else can see it as well too. So you'll see those feelings that people have had. And please remember that stressed, tired, anxious, frustrated, none of those is a bad word. It's that full range of emotion that we need to acknowledge and express that helps us to receive the benefits of self-compassion. So we saw those results. So again, remember, please, that self-compassion is something that we can learn. We can practice it to get better at it. So one kind of exercise that you might do to increase your self-compassion is meditation. If you've never done meditation, we actually have that, a way that you can practice that here at GCC. The Center for Learning has a place called the Mindfulness Space. Right now during the pandemic, it's virtual every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 1:30 to 2. You can get into that space and practice some mindfulness. If you've never done that before, don't worry, there will be somebody there that will help guide you. It's mostly a quiet time. And if you are a seasoned practitioner of meditation, you may also find it beneficial to gather with others as you engage in that practice. So that's one way to increase your self-compassion. Another way is journaling. So journaling, you can do that with a notebook. You can do that in your computer. It can be done in as little as a minute a day. I forgot to tell you this at the beginning, but I wanted to encourage you to take notes during the presentation as a way to help you remember what you're learning. That's one of the best ways to learn, is to actually take notes. So hopefully you have some paper and a writing instrument nearby, because I'm going to invite you to respond to a prompt, because you can journal either by responding to prompts or just sort of freewheeling it, put down or write whatever you're feeling at the moment. But the prompt I want to give you is, how do I feel about journaling? And I'm going to give you just literally 60 seconds to do that. So hopefully you have some paper, and if you would just write, how do I answer the question, how do I feel about journaling? And if you think you've said everything you want to say, keep your pen to paper and just let it doodle. $20. Okay, very good. Thank you. So that's just two ways that you might increase your self-compassion. And studies show that even with daily practice of both of those techniques for 2 weeks, people have been able to increase their self-compassion. I encourage you to give those a try. So we've looked at self-compassion, and the next strategy that we're going to look at is courage. So courage can be learned as well. Courage is taking a worthwhile risk to achieve a goal. So I'll tell you the story of one of my students that told me recently that last semester, when we had to pivot to all online learning, it was really stressful for her. She was an A student, and with that pivot, she ended up getting a D in the class. She was very discouraged because she has goals that she wants to accomplish, and that D just didn't seem like it was getting her any closer. She didn't want to go through that again. So she decided, when she heard that fall was all online again, she said, nope, I'm not going to sign up for classes. And then spring came, and spring was going to be online again. And she thought back to her goal, and that goal of this getting her degree so that she can move towards the career that she wants, and realized that she wasn't getting any closer to that goal. She decided to take a risk, a worthwhile risk, to achieve that goal of getting back into online classes in the hopes that she could learn some things that would help her be more successful. And so far this semester, she's been doing a great job with these online classes. So it's really important to look at both of those things, the goal that we have, what's the value that we have from that goal, and then what kinds of risks are we willing to take in order to achieve that. Certainly COVID-19 is giving us lots of opportunities to try to find new ways to achieve our goals, because everything that we're doing has had to change. The way that we shop, the way that we socialize, the way we go to school, the way we do business, all of those things are changing. I'm very invested in my friendships and my family relationships, and I like to get together with friends to play games every now and again. And though I don't particularly like technology, my goal of staying connected with family and friends led to my willingness to take the risk of trying these online games that I hadn't really heard about. I heard some people talking about it, and then finally I experienced it. There's one called Jackbox that my husband and I have purchased and have played with some friends. So that's kind of a small example, but it's something that I had to really think about. What's important to me? What do I value? And what am I willing to do in order to achieve that? So I'm going to invite Dr. Gerken now to put in the chat a link to a Padlet where you can think about goals that you've had and risks that you've had to take in order to help you accomplish that goal. So if you could put that in the Padlet, please. I mean, in the chat, please.
It is there.
Excellent. So it's there. And when you get there, if you're still on my screen, when you get there, there's going to be 3 columns. And if you would start with just the first column, don't write in the second or third columns yet, but just answer that question, something new you've tried or a risk you've taken to achieve a goal during the pandemic. And I'll give you about 2-3 minutes to try that. Looks like people are already working. I appreciate that. We're going to focus just on that first column for right now, and then we'll come back and look at that grateful question and look at the meaning question. So we've had folks that have said that they're seeking help to help with their anxiety. So all of this is anonymous, so feel free to be as, and to put whatever you want down there without feeling the fear that you'll be revealed. Somebody's starting to take CBD to help with their anxiety. Quit my full-time job so that I could go to school full-time. Facilitating virtual sessions, taking online classes, starting back to school after losing a job, part of that economic hardship, I'll guess. Have to get a job, which I was scared to do before. Sobriety. So great, you all are jumping ahead to that next grateful poll too. We're going to come back to that again in a little bit. But thank you. It looks like people have taken a number of risks in order to achieve the goal that you have of being able to support yourself or maybe support family or live a healthy lifestyle, achieve your goals. So thank you for sharing those. I'll invite you to come back to the Zoom room now, to the presentation. And I'm going to encourage you to just really think about your goals, maybe tonight, this week, and what value you have on those goals and what you're willing to do to help yourself accomplish them. You've already hopefully given yourself a pat on the back for the things that you have done that you wrote about in the Padlet. So I congratulate you as well for those risks that you have already taken to achieve your goal. I encourage you to continue to exert effort towards that goal, because that's where growth comes from. When you strategize your effort in working towards a goal, that's where you will see the results. So really applaud you for what you've already done and encourage you to keep doing that as a way to manage this continued disruption of COVID-19. Continue to grow your skills. So we've looked at the compassion and courage. Now let's take a look at gratitude. Some of you are already jumping ahead to that. This is another strategy that can be improved with practice. Gratitude's the affirmation and recognition of benefits received. It's valuable for the person who expresses it, as well as for society at large. It's a personal good and a social good. An example for my own life is that my husband and I have a bedtime ritual of expressing gratitude to each other for things that could be as simple as, I appreciate your making the bed today. Or it might be a little bit more involved, thanks for making dinner tonight. Or thanks for doing the laundry. Or maybe thanks for giving me a hug when I said I was nervous about my presentation today. But we do that every day so that we can build up that, that gratitude kind of muscle that we have and continue to affect our relationship, which hopefully then it also affects the social good as well. So it's definitely something that can be learned. Some of you are already expressing gratitude, so I'll invite you back to the Padlet, and I'm going to see what kinds of things you have been saying there that you are grateful for.
You can either click on the link again, or you can go back to that window if it's still open on your computer.
Yes. So people are grateful for friends that share experiences, family and health, having families, having a roof, having a job. Grateful for my relationships and pets, for a second chance. Lots of relationships. See that whether they're with pets or family or friends, lots about health. Great. People are, someone said they're grateful every day. Really appreciate that. So I'm going to go back into the presentation in the Zoom room. So I invite you to join me there again. Thank you for expressing those gratitudes. There's a lot of benefit from expressing gratitude. The benefits are psychological, physical, relational, and even spiritual. All of those things can, if we express gratitude, we can experience benefits in all of those areas. A grateful mindset and a grateful orientation towards life really seems to be particularly valuable in the midst of all of this uncontrollable stress that we're in right now that has been somewhat created by the coronavirus crisis. One of the ways to kind of exercise that gratitude muscle, so to speak, is also journaling. Pops up again here. I would encourage you to, if you don't want to speak your gratitude out loud to a loved one, or if you live alone, maybe what you want to do is to journal every night and write 1, 2, or 3 things that you are grateful for every day. We really can change our mindset to a more positive, affirming, optimistic mindset, and that has all sorts of benefits, as I've mentioned. So I encourage you to do that as well. So we've looked at self-compassion, courage, gratitude. The last one that we're going to look at is meaning making. So meaning making, we're not really going to find meaning in a book. We're not likely to find it there. What's the meaning of life? That's really a very personal kind of thing. Each of us has our own personal purpose or meaning that we give to life or that we find from life. It's especially true in times of tragedy that people seek meaning and try to make meaning, and that ability to make meaning out of tragedy can have an exponential effect on our health. There have been studies, as I've said, during COVID, a lot of researchers have been very busy. Some have been looking at frontline healthcare workers, worried about all the stresses that they've been under with the multiple shifts that they're working without a break and being separated from their families because they don't want to infect their families, so they live in a different room, or whatever kinds of strategies they're taking to try to protect their families. But despite that, the research has found that 61% of the healthcare workers who were surveyed said that they have found increased meaning and purpose in life during this pandemic. One of the most famous examples is probably Viktor Frankl, who was a survivor of the Nazi concentration camps. He went in, he was already a psychoanalyst, and so was very interested in people and seeing how people worked, how their minds worked. And as he spent more time in the camp, he was seeing people die all around him. And he was curious and wanted to find out, what was it that helped those who were surviving survive? And what he found is that those who were able to make some sort of meaning from their life, sometimes it was that they gave their piece of bread to somebody else because they wanted to be able to have helped somebody else live and survive. That the people who found meaning are those who were more likely to survive. One of his famous quotes is this: "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." So I have a story of pre-COVID where I found some meaning in my life too. And I am going to have to, let's see, I have that slide somewhere else. But so in the summer of 2018, I was diagnosed with cancer. It was supposedly a pretty easy type of cancer. Wasn't supposed to have any kind of tragic effect for me. My sisters had also been diagnosed with that same type of cancer. And they had survived with chemotherapy and radiation. So I went through 4 months of chemotherapy, and the cancer, instead of going away, grew while I was on chemotherapy. So we had to look at other options and figure out what could be done, because I was told that if I didn't do anything, I wouldn't survive the cancer. And the option that they gave me was an option that just felt much more disruptive to my life than I wanted to do. And there was a potential for a lot of ongoing health consequences of that. And I have considered myself a healthy person. And as I said in my introduction, I love spending time outdoors and running and hiking and biking and things like that. And when I was faced with the possibility that might change for me, it was really distressing for me. And I needed to figure out what my goals were and values were and what risks I was willing to take to be able to accomplish them. And I did decide to take that risk of it's called a stem cell transplant. And it was a very rigorous set of treatments that I had to go through, and spent about a month in the hospital going through the treatments and part of my recovery, and then continued to recover after I was released from the hospital. And then a year later, in July of 2019, I did find that the treatment worked, that I was healthy there I am with my husband and our dog. And what I discovered during that time, especially when I was trying to decide what are my values and what's important to me, I thought about my mission and my meaning and my purpose. And what I came up with was that my purpose is to give and receive love. And that was what allowed me to say, okay, I'll go through this, even if it means my lifestyle is severely compromised after this is done, because I can still give love and receive love. So those are just some examples of how people, even in circumstances that might be perceived as tragic, can make meaning. So let's get back to this. And this is going to show you one of my favorite characters. I'm a really big Winnie the Pooh fan. And I hope most of you are familiar with Winnie the Pooh and his friends. And one of the reasons I love Pooh so much is because I think he exemplifies all of the positive psychological strategies that I have mentioned, the self-compassion and the courage and the gratitude and the meaning making, and even more than that. And in case you can't read the words on this, this is Pooh talking with his friend Piglet. And he's saying, how lucky I am to have something that makes saying goodbye so hard. So that was his way of making meaning and being able to change his perspective in a way that was a self-compassionate way. And I am going to play for you 1.5 minutes of a Kenny Loggins song about Winnie the Pooh. And along with that song, there's some video of Pooh and friends engaged in some activities. During that 1.5 minutes that you're watching this video, I'm going to ask you to look for examples of self-compassion and courage and gratitude and meaning making. See if you can find that in this little clip that I'm going to play for you. So where did you go? Come back. I had it set up so that, oh, there it is. There we go.
Christopher Robin and I walked along under branches lit up by the moon, posing our questions to Owl and Eeyore as our days disappeared all too soon. But I've wandered much further today than I should, and I can't seem to find my way back to the wood. So help me if you can, I've got to get back to the house at the corner by one. You'd be surprised, there's so much to be done. Count all the bees in the hive, chase all the clouds from the sky, back to the days of Christopher Robin and Pooh.
So I'm going to stop it there because it goes on longer and it's one of my favorites, but just in case you're not a Kenny Loggins or Winnie the Pooh fan, we'll stop. And I'll invite you to write in the chat if you were able to see any examples of self-compassion, courage, gratitude, or meaning making. And then Dr. Gerken, if you see anything in the chat, I will ask you to read those.
Sure will. Adrian says it took courage to jump over the turtles.
Mm-hmm.
Don't carry so much weight by yourself. Let others help you.
Mm-hmm.
Carrying Piglet, compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe to build a house with friends could be meaningful.
Mm-hmm. There was a place in there where Winnie the Pooh was separated from his friends. They were all going in the other direction. And when he realized that, that's when he stepped on the turtles. But what I noticed is that he didn't beat himself over the head for it. Oh no, I'm going in the wrong direction. Or, oh, they've left me behind. He just hopped along and found his way back to his friends.
Drawing the door, meaning.
Yeah. And at the end of that clip, they're all in that little house together that they built for Eeyore. And Eeyore says thank you, and they say thank you to Christopher Robin, and then Pooh and Piglet walk back home reflecting. And all of those things are things that I think are positive psychological principles to just reflect, to stay connected with friends. We didn't talk about some of those, but they're all things that can help buffer us against mental illness, bolster us in maintaining our mental health, and help us to build resiliency skills for the future.
Troy posted that the carry the weight part I got from when Piglet was trying to carry all the branches.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Well, I think I can confidently say that the pandemic has had an impact on all of us. And I encourage us to use the positive psychological strategies we talked about to be able to buffer, bolster, and build ourselves. And so again, what we talked about was self-compassion and changing your perspective, treating yourself with kindness and gentleness, realizing that suffering is a shared experience. To consider your goals and what risks you are willing to take to accomplish them. So to have courage and be willing to learn something new. To express gratitude, perhaps to another person or within a journal, and to do that on a daily basis. And then to find meaning, even in very difficult circumstances, to make meaning. That's something that we can each do for ourselves, is make that meaning. We have some upcoming workshops that will even dive further into some of these things. The next one that's coming up is called What's Your Purpose? Our colleague Araceli Barajas will be giving this workshop, and it's a lot about meaning and purpose, particularly as related to career choices that you might be making, academic and career choices that you might make. And then a couple of weeks after that, there's one about connection, the need for connection, and our colleague Mia Hernandez will be doing that one. And then there are even more after that. The complete list is on our website with the link listed right there. So again, I encourage you to do that because they'll be diving even more deeply into some of these concepts that I've introduced you to today. So now it's an opportunity for you to ask questions or offer comments. Dr. Gerken will be monitoring the chat for us so that he'll read those so that if there's any questions or comments, I can answer them. And just remind you to please stay around. If you're here for extra credit, we will post an evaluation in the chat so that we can verify your attendance. And then I'll also post a PDF of the slides.
Okay, while we're waiting for questions or comments, I'll just read what Carlos wrote about the video again with Winnie the Pooh. Tiger, Piglet, and Pooh carrying the branch together. Gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Presentation was calming in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Your presentation helps reinforce and remind me about strategies, especially helpful for today's times.
Actually, I'm going to go back to share.
You have a very calming voice to add. Thank you.
Okay.
Couple more thank yous.
Right.
I learned so much. Thank you.
All right. Well, if anyone has a question that they'd prefer to keep personal, you're welcome to email me, or better yet, schedule a time to meet. I would be happy to talk with you further about any of these concepts, to be a place where you can practice some of these things that we've talked about. Or if you're another Winnie the Pooh fan, we could share Winnie the Pooh stories too. Happy to do that. So I have included some references on this next slide. So Dr. Gerken, I guess if you, in the absence of any other questions or comments, maybe now would be an opportunity to post the evaluation. So we're going to ask you for feedback. Again, this was our first workshop of the spring series. So we would really appreciate your feedback, learning from you what's helpful, what else you might like to hear. And then it also asks, if you're here for extra credit, to provide your instructor's name so that we can verify your attendance.
It is posted. The link to the survey or the evaluation of the workshop is posted, so please click on that. It may take a couple of clicks for it to work, but click on that and fill it out, especially if you want to get extra credit. You'll indicate that there.
Yes, good point. We would appreciate your filling that out no matter what, but especially if you want extra credit, that will allow us to give that to you. And then I'm also going to post a copy of a PDF of the slides in case anybody wants a copy of that. So we appreciate any of our STEM folks who came today, anybody who came with extra credit for classes, any faculty, staff, students. So grateful for your attendance today, and I will post that in there right now. I think I will. Am I still co-host? I don't see that I'm able to post. Usually I can post a file.
You are the co-host.
I'm the co-host. I'm not seeing the ability to. Okay, let me do this. There we go. There we go. Okay, so I just posted a copy of the slides in the chat so that if you want those, that the hyperlinks should be active on there. So you should have that information. We are very grateful for you coming, and I am so grateful to Dr. Gerken for helping me with the technology for this, and for some of my colleagues for being there for support too, and some of my students. So that's great. If there's anything that we can do to help, please contact us at the counseling department, counseling@gccaz.edu, and our phone is 623-845-3064. And not sure, any other announcements, Dr. Gerken?
I would say that we'll keep this open for about 5 minutes till about 3 o'clock.
Okay.
So during that time, be sure to click on the file if you want the slides. It's called Copy of Disruptions of COVID.pdf. If you click on that, it'll download to your computer the PDF of all the file of all the slides from today's presentation. I am seeing from a question that I can respond to directly about not seeing the slides. But if you look in the chat, you should see it towards the bottom. You may need to scroll to the bottom.
Thanks, Ariel, for answering that question. Somebody asked what we do for extra credit. So complete that, go to the link, the form that Dr. Gerken put in the chat, and then that's how that collects your name and the class that you're looking for extra credit or program. right.
I'm answering a few direct messages to me, individual
Okay.
questions.
Okay,
So,
great.
as I said, we'll keep this open. Would you like me to stop the recording?
Sure, I think we can do that now. Thank you. So Joy said she didn't see it. So Joy, here, or David, do you mind